Chances are that if you clicked on this video, you are by now familiar with the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni drama related to the release of their movie It Ends With Us. I'm not going to waste your time by diving into the details of this drama. There are a ton of videos out there that have been created in the last 2 weeks. Some are still being released, so make sure that you go to the respective channels of the people that really like to dig up details and describe the whole situation to you if you're not familiar with it. I've also placed 2 links in the description box below to some videos that I found informative. What I will do for you in this video is give you the astrological perspective on what is actually going on with Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, but also with Ryan Reynolds, who's a really interesting side culprit in this entire saga. And I do believe that what is actually happening to Blake Lively at the moment, with everybody turning against her and finding out her real nature, whatever that is actually the result of karma. And it can be easily shown by the current planetary transits, which are triggering and activating a lot of the energies in her birth chart. So let's dive straight into this mess and put on our astrological goggles. Hi everyone, welcome to my video. I look like a mess, I feel like a mess, and I thought what better way to distract myself than to film an astrological interpretation of the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni drama. I'm an astrologer, so what I will do in this video for you is I'll create a space in which we can leave comments down below related to the astrology of these people. What's going on with them? Why this drama? Why this intensity? There are a number of really interesting things I noticed, and I just felt the need to create this video to open up the space for discussion and to share some of the things with you in a very relaxed, chilled manner. If you hear some weird stuff in the background, I'm playing some music because I thought this is going to be the perfect soundtrack to score the intensity of this drama. Because drama it is, because we have some really phenomenal astrological interactions and I really can't wait to dive deep into them. I keep looking to the side because I have my trusty laptop here, replete with astrological and occult symbols. And it's helping me have a look at the charts themselves, but you will see the charts over here. I'm going to put them for each individual member that I will be discussing. The member to this drama, of course. Comrades in pain, they are. So let's begin first with Blake. Beautiful woman, nobody can deny that. We know she is not naturally beautiful, that there were some tweaks happening. If you don't believe me, have a look at this clip about her. You'll find out some really interesting changes. Just looking at her chart, which you can see over here, I think you will notice that she has a south node in Libra. It's strange that I'm beginning with the south nodes, but I do think that the nodes are so important as to the timing of the drama, the fact that she chose to star in such a role, and why it has exploded in 2024, particularly during a sensitive time of the year, a Mercury retrograde. Blake has a south node in Libra and a north node in Aries, and I am obsessed with this placement because I too was born with it. You know who else was born with this placement? She. Yes, she of the Johnny Depp trial. Well, I don't know what I can say. It's not making me like my south node placement, but there are ways in which you can augment the positive qualities of a south node placement rather than fall shamelessly full face into them with utter disregard for other people's feelings, which has been happening during the press tour of this movie It Ends With Us. If Blake has a south node in Libra, that means she automatically has a north node in Aries. And look at how beautifully her north node in Aries is having this phenomenally loose arc, a loose conjunction with Jupiter in Aries. Now the interesting thing is that they are placed in different houses. So Blake has her north node in Aries in the 8th house and her Jupiter in the 9th house. Her Jupiter is retrograde, which means, in my point of view, it's moving a little bit clunky. It's not actually at its best. When a planet goes retrograde, astrologers have a variety of different ways of interpreting this. Some would say that a retrograde planet is actually more powerful, more deep. One of my favorite British astrologers, Pam Gregory, she has this viewpoint. She has a number of retrograde planets, and indeed she is a wonderful human being. So I tend to agree with her when she says that retrograde planets work magic in a person's chart. She is the living example of that. However, from my humble personal experience, I can tell you that retrograde planets have only brought me issues, misfortune, needing to go over a lot of things. I do a lot of cleaning up work during a retrograde. It could be because of my own retrograde planets and how they interact with the current retrograde transits. But what's important to know is that you need to rely on your own personal experiences by being aware of your astrological chart, but also keep in mind what other people are saying, and you can actually form an opinion by disagreeing with it or by agreeing with it. I am going to state that a retrograde planet, especially in the position of Jupiter, tends to make a person fill itself with the hot air of importance. Being important, being number one, being the best at what she does is actually Blake's destiny. She is supposed to be a creative leader for other people. She is supposed to be somebody whose role model personality we want to emulate. And she's been doing this, but she's been doing it on a deeply superficial level. And now everybody is wising up to this characteristic. But I fail to see why it is such a shock for everybody, considering that she became famous for playing a plastic, fantastic, beautiful looking woman from the Upper East Side, right? We know her as Serena van der Woodsen from the series Gossip Girl. To be honest, I was always a Blair girl. I loved her from the beginning. I loved her character. I just love how Leighton Mystere looks like. She's so gorgeous. And I also like her personality. She's such a badass. Do you guys know that she actually took her family to trial in order to defend her little brother? And she also has much better tastes in men. She's been together with Aidan Brody for such a long time. And do you hear all sorts of drama about them? No, because you know that actually happy couples, actual people who are in love, tend to enjoy their intimacy and their privacy. They are just so busy living their love out that they don't want to parade it in front of the world, unlike these two that keep making all these social appearances and try to come across as the perfect couple. Well, actually they were the perfect couple for a while now, mostly because she has a stellium in Virgo and he has a stellium in Scorpio, and the transit of Pluto and Capricorn was making all these lovely trines and sextiles to their stelliums. A stellium is a cluster of planets in the same sign, in the same astrological sign, and it's making a person's energy quite intense, intensely concentrated and focused on achieving something in an area of a person's life. Now, wrapping up this definition, coming back to the transit of Pluto and Capricorn since 2008 until, sadly, the beginning of this year, Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn, supporting the natural growth and rise to power of both Blake and her husband Ryan. But unfortunately, now Pluto has switched signs, therefore it has switched the seat of power. And guess in what astrological sign Pluto is currently? Aquarius. Do we know a specific Aquarius sun that plays an important role in this drama? Wow, oh my god, look, it's Justin Baldoni, born with a sun in Aquarius. So all of a sudden, here is a man that is rising in his power, and the people that were previously quite powerful happen to work with him, and they don't like the fact that they're taken down a notch. Interesting, to say the least. But I digress. Let's bring it back to Blake's chart. Let's do it properly. Let's do a proper astrological analysis. We're gonna look at her big three. So this means her ascendant, her sun, and her moon placements. These are the outer markers of a person's personality, how they look and their style, how they are and their professional path in life, their goals and their energy levels, the sun, and how they are in private, their emotional world, and how they like to behave when nobody sees them behind closed doors, when they are relaxing, when they're chilling, at home specifically, the moon. So we see in her chart that Blake has an ascendant in Leo. She has a sun in Virgo in the first house and a moon in Virgo. She has a whopping 5 planets parked in her first and second house. And that means that her ascendant is kind of coating most of her personal planets. So in spite of the fact that we see a lot of Virgo energy, and we all know that Virgos are supposed to be the modest, hardworking sign of the zodiac, well, Blake comes across as more Leonic because of that Leo ascendant. That's why she has that fabulous hair and the corresponding hair care product line to go with it. That's why she launched it during a Mercury retrograde that was taking place across the signs of Leo and Virgo. So the transit of this Mercury retrograde, in which the drama was happening, was actually touching upon her ascendant and her first house planets. Now, being a sun in Virgo does indeed make a person pragmatic, very focused on achieving results. Virgos are more followers than leaders. They like to be the secretaries to the big boss. They like to be helpers, right? They come in, they have a problem to fix, and they want to do their best. They want to perfect and improve a situation. But having the sun in the first house borrows traits from the really charismatic, impulsive, and kind of hot-headed sign of Aries. So even though Blake has 5 planets in modest Virgo, her sun, her moon, her Mercury, her Venus, and her Mars, the fact that they are parked in the first house, minus her moon, which is actually parked in the second house, we'll talk about this in a second, but the fact that all these planets are concentrated in the first house, the house in astrology which is all about me first, my identity, my personality, my things, well, it colors her identity in a very specific light. The fact that she has an ascendant in Leo adds to the ego. The fact that she has a Jupiter in Aries, which is malfunctioning because it's retrograde, adds to the ego. The fact that her Jupiter is conjunct the North Node in Aries, meaning that her path in this lifetime is to become malefic, the bad guy, and to thrive through it, adds to the ego. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? Do you understand right now the magic of astrology and how it actually portrays the interior of a person, which is now unfortunately spilling over in social media due to her latest project? Blake has always been this person. It's just that now we are seeing it because of the movement of Pluto. And speaking of Pluto, I love the fact that the music in the background changed. So let's look at Justin Baldoni's chart. So Pluto is hanging around the 0 to 1 degrees of Aquarius this year, and next year it's really gonna pick up pace because at the moment Pluto is also transiting a little bit back in its retrograde movement for about 2 months in the sign of Capricorn, and then it will fully unleash its power and force starting from December 2024. So we see here from Justin's chart that he was born with the sun in Aquarius in the house of Leo, the 5th house. We also see as well that he has a moon in Scorpio right next to Pluto, Mars, and loosely conjunct Saturn as well. Now Saturn for him resides in the 3rd house, which is the house of the mind, the house of social media communications, the house of local community and the environment in which you just interact, you know, the environment in which you kind of see on your day-to-day basis. A number of things that we need to unpack there, but before I jump ahead in my analysis, because it can go all over the place, guys, I'm in a very messy mood right now. I think it's the full moon in Pisces that's affecting me. I need to spring it back to his ascendant. Do you see his ascendant there? His ascendant is in Virgo. So remember how I said that Blake has a stellium of planets in Virgo, an ascendant in Leo, and the sun in the 1st house bringing up her Aries-like traits? And now we're looking at Justin, and he has an ascendant in Virgo, a sun in Aquarius in the house of Leo, and a moon in Scorpio. Where? In the 2nd house, the house of Taurus, the house of self-worth. Where does Blake have her moon? Her moon is in Virgo, in the 2nd house, the house of Taurus, the house of self-worth, money, and working relationships with other people. Do you see some patterns here? Oh, it gets better. It gets so much better. I'm actually feeling quite happy because I think that all these accusations that may be happening behind the scenes that we can glimpse at only with our analytical minds, but we're not actually told that they are happening. We are just getting tidbits, and like investigators, we're trying to put them all together. Yeah, I just came off of a week in which I played Paradise Killer and I'm still under the spell of Lady Love Dice, guys. So please bear with me. I cannot get over the I was born to investigate vibe that she was putting forward. Anyway, coming back to our own sheep, as we like to say in my culture, we can see very clearly over here that with such a concentrated energy in Scorpio, we are dealing here with a man who is very intense. Justin is a man who portrays to the world only the tip of the iceberg of emotions that lies inside of him. Not only is his moon, so his most private, intimate self, in the deepest, darkest, most obsessive, most sensual sign of the zodiac, Scorpio, so that already colors his private personality, the way he is in intimacy, very deeply. But his moon is surrounded by malefics, only malefics. We have Mars and Saturn, which are the traditional malefics in ancient astrology, and then we have Pluto, recently discovered, demoted from the status of a planet to just a rock in space. But still, to me, Pluto will always be a planet. It's important for astrological analysis to continue to consider Pluto a planet because it bears such a massive weight in a person's chart, especially since it was discovered. If you don't believe me, check out this guy's book and this guy's book, okay? They are known as the Pluto brothers in the astrological community, and they are pretty amazing analysts. Okay, coming back to Justin's chart. So we see here Uranus in the 4th house in Sagittarius. He also has Mercury in Capricorn in the same house, together with Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus. Venus is in the sign of Sagittarius, but Neptune, Jupiter, and Mercury are in Capricorn. I can already see a really important karmic marker for Justin. For some reason, I wasn't very drawn to his south node and north node. His south node is in Sagittarius and his north node is in Gemini. Again, this tells me that he is an individual that is learning in this lifetime how to be less wild with his emotions, how to think first and act afterwards, because he's a very impulsive man. And I can tell you that I grew up raised by two people that had the south node placement. They had phenomenal screaming and shouting matches in the household while I was just eating my cereal, and I had to put up with this for 20 years of my life. So I am very familiar with a south node in Sagittarius, north node in Gemini personality. In front of other people, they come across as very candid, very polite, very sweet, very affable, but behind closed doors they can be rage monsters, okay? So I think that whatever is happening with people no longer following him on social media and the cast and crew members distancing themselves from him has to do with his intense personality. We see there very clearly that he has a lot of darkness in his chart with 4 planets in Scorpio, but also he tends to come across as quite controlling due to the fact that he has another cluster of planets in the controlling sign of Capricorn. We see Jupiter, Neptune, and Mercury. Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because I see there that with Saturn in the 3rd house, Justin is this kind of person that had to learn very early on how to talk to other people, how to communicate clearly, because he would receive instant karma for saying the wrong thing, for thinking the wrong thing at times as well. With Saturn in the 3rd house, this is a lot about learning the proper rules of conduct, learning etiquette, learning how to put yourself in the best possible light and how you choose your words wisely, because whatever you say could be used against you. No wonder that when drama hit town, or better said, karma may have hit town, he quickly went to hire Johnny Depp's PR coach. Also, I've been hearing talks about intimacy coordinators that were hired to be on set to kind of like help them out with the most intense scenes. And apparently during one of these scenes, Blake reported that he got a little bit too cozy with the kissing. The music behind me has picked up pace as we're diving deep into his chart. Now, the reason for that, I think that there is a really strong attraction between the two of them. I think that initially it was from the beginning there was chemistry, and some people who have seen the movie are able to relate that, yeah, indeed, there is a lot of chemistry between the two of them. And I think this is attributed to the fact that Blake is married to Ryan Reynolds, and Ryan Reynolds suspiciously has a cluster of planets in the sign of Scorpio. So if the love of your life has a lot of energy points in the sign of Scorpio, and then you meet another man that you work with in a very intense, intimate way, and he has a lot of points similarly parked in the sign of Scorpio, chances are that sparks will fly between you and the other person. Could it have been that the both of them got intimately entangled to such an extent that they could have had a massive row, and Ryan Reynolds had to intervene because with all the scorpionic energy, jealousies and egos were flying off the scale? I wonder. I think that there's also something here about loose boundaries. There is a lot of water in Justin's chart, and there is a lot of earth in Blake's chart. There is also considerable water in Ryan Reynolds' chart. And this is the next culprit in this saga that we are going to be talking about. I believe that Justin was mirroring a lot of the ways in which Ryan may have behaved with Blake in their relationship, thereby emphasizing the attraction on set and creating a pressure cooker that exploded during the promotion of this movie. Okay, so here is Ryan's chart. It makes me laugh because let's talk about his big threes. We see an ascendant in Virgo. I wonder who else around him, around this drama, had an ascendant in Virgo. Okay, I'm playing coy. This guy. Okay, this guy. We know, we've been talking about him. Now, let's dial it up a notch and check out his other placements. You will be shocked, guys. So we see there is similar Venus in Sagittarius, but this time conjunct Neptune, and it is parked in his third house, the house of communication. So Ryan has the gift of gab. Ryan can charm everybody's socks off by the way he speaks. That's why most of his attractiveness comes from the way in which he communicates with the public. It definitely doesn't come from his physical good looks, which tend to be on the more modest side. With an ascendant in Virgo, you normally tend to look quite geeky, quite nerdy. You don't really have a superstar persona factor like Blake does. Blake has a Leo ascendant, which is optimal for a career as an actress. Not only that, but she has her Jupiter very close to the midheaven, which kind of ensures that her path in life, her destiny, is supposed to be luminous. It's supposed to be a person with a very good public image that attracts a lot of individuals. Contrary to this, Ryan has a midheaven in Gemini, so he comes across in front of the public as a nerdy guy, an intelligent guy, a smart guy who worked hard to be with the girl of his dreams. His ascendant and his midheaven in Gemini guarantee that he is perceived in this way by the public. But if we dive deeper, what do we see there? He has a sun in Scorpio in the second house. We see there a Mercury and Pluto in Libra. Pluto is parked in the first house, which is really important because he is not only a Plutonic by being a sun in Scorpio, but this Pluto energy is doubled by the fact that he has the planet Pluto, even if in a different sign in Libra, but parked in the first house, which is one of the most visible parts of our chart. So his personality will constantly go through these many different numbers of death and rebirth moments, personal transformation that lead him higher and higher and higher to the core of his real authentic self. His destiny in life is one of deep change, chaos, and sexual seething obsessions because he has a South Node in Scorpio, but he's meant to use all of that power in order to build his wealth and attract a lot of material rewards for his emotional work. I can see that Ryan has Saturn in Leo, and this would fall in Blake's first house in the ascendant because her ascendant is in Leo. So this leads me to think that Ryan carries a lot of control over how Blake comes across in public. He has a lot of things to say, and he may also micromanage her look, how she comes across. She may have these conversations with him behind closed doors that have to deal with don't make me look bad in public. And I think that these suggestions may come predominantly from him. With this Saturn and Leo in the 11th house situation that Ryan has, conjunct Blake's ascendant in Leo, this kind of gives me the feeling that Ryan has this mentality of I control your style and your look, Blake, because in this way, by being close to you and to your beauty, I position myself favorably in the big boys club or in elitist groups that I want to be part of. Saturn and Leo in the 11th house. Through sheer effort and by making all the right masculine choices, Ryan is now perceived as a powerful guy. He's no longer the guy that's been bullied in high school, right? He traded basically Scarlett Johansson for Blake Lively, and in this way, he earned the respect of a lot of men who actually saw him elevating himself from Scarlett, as if you can elevate yourself from Scarlett Johansson. We can get to that in a separate video if you want me to. Blake Lively is more easily controllable than Scarlett, because I have all respect for Scarlett. She is a phenomenally wonderful actress, and I do think that Blake on some level is unconsciously copying her in order to please Ryan. I mean, I found it a little bit suspicious that Scarlett used to work with Woody Allen and she would gush about her experiences with him, for which she was criticized, and then all of a sudden we're getting news pieces that Blake is gushing over Woody Allen and she's being criticized for it. I also found it surprising that during the time when Scarlett was engaged in the Black Widow roles as part of the Marvel universe, a part which I think definitely increased her income and her popularity worldwide, also Blake was doing these kind of roles in this kind of movie where she was battling sharks with her bare hands and trying to survive alone on an island, kind of falling into this action woman. And I think that popping children and calling herself breeder and having such a large family does have to do with an unconscious need to kind of position herself somehow above Scarlett Johansson. The mentality may be, yeah, sure, you may have more success as an actress, but look at me, I have all these children to account for. Look how much Ryan loves me. Look how stable our family is and how solid. So there is a lot of this looks above substance that I think happens this couple, and I do feel that in spite of the fact that they have this image of Ryan kind of portraying her as putting her on a pedestal and he's like the geeky guy that struck gold by being with his top model girlfriend, in reality I feel that he's controlling her much more than we are aware of. And she's allowing herself to be controlled because unfortunately Blake isn't actually maximizing her North Node in Aries by being a creative leader that can inspire a lot of people, by taking issues very seriously and by really seeing herself as a serious actor, as a serious producer, as a serious participant in the creation of art. She sees herself as the wife of Ryan Reynolds, as the mother of 4 children, and she comes across as doing acting as some sort of hobby that she does now because, you know, people expect her to. So we see how she's not living up to the North Node in Aries, and Ryan is stepping in to kind of manage the thing behind the scenes. And more news pieces like this one are coming up to actually show us that indeed there may have been more involvement taking place behind scenes from Ryan than it was expected. And this may be what triggered Justin to distance himself from this entire promotion of the movie and from filming a sequel to the movie. Coming back to Ryan, he has this stellium of planets. He has a sun, a moon, Mars and Uranus in Scorpio. Different from Justin. Justin had Pluto and Saturn there thrown in the mix. We can see very strongly the really powerful impact that these two men leave on each other when they come together. They're very similar because they have this intense scorpionic energy, but Justin comes across as more lighthearted due to the fact that he's a sun in Aquarius and he's got the star personality by having the sun placed in the 5th house. And he also has his destiny, the North Node in Gemini, so he has to be very careful what he says, how he says it. I'm sure that he's heavily media trained with Saturn in the 3rd house, and this is why he's acing all those media milestones, while contrary to this, Blake, who doesn't have a Saturn in the 3rd house or a North Node in Gemini in the sign of communication, doesn't feel the same push or urgency to define herself in ways that are careful and carefully constructed for the public. In addition to this, because Ryan and Justin are very similar, I do not doubt the fact that there was powerful attraction between Justin and Blake, attraction that they may have needed to put a lid on because both of them were happily married. And I feel that Ryan may have sniffed the competition, and this is why he jumped into the drama in order to create these natural boundaries between Blake and Justin. So I do believe that the drama has been somehow amplified also because of Ryan's involvement development. I don't think it's just Blake that we should be ganging up upon and taking down in video essays. I definitely think it's the fact that Blake is allowing Ryan to control her, and Ryan was jealous of the deep intimacy that was created between Justin and Blake. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is why Colleen Hoover, why Scarlett Johansson, why Blake Lively? What's going on here? Well, let's bring up Blake Lively's chart again, and we can see very clearly there that she has a Saturn and Sagittarius conjunct Uranus in the 5th house, the house of performances. So in spite of the fact that she has this celebrity allure, the potential to become very famous and well known, actually Blake was born with a lot of karma related to her being able to be in front of a public and perform. I think that what is happening there in the 5th house is karmic blowback for the way in which she's kind of low-key trying to usurp another important actress's personality, lifestyle, and whole allure. So I do think that she has this pick-me personality, not necessarily a mean girl, but more like a person that likes to model after other successful women. And because she hasn't been working a lot on her own identity, she ends up becoming like her perception of who these women really are. So this is what happened in her case with Scarlett. And I'm mentioning this because we see a deep karmic marker between the two of them. Scarlett Johansson was born with a sun in Sagittarius. She also happens to have a moon in Scorpio. Do we know of another person with a moon in Scorpio conjunct Saturn that is having beef with Blake? Maybe this guy? What's going on here? Okay, so it seems that a person with the moon in Scorpio conjunct Saturn should not hang around with Blake Lively because drama will ensue. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm sure that you catch the drill. So the fact that Blake has a Saturn in Sagittarius and Scarlett is a Sun in Sagittarius means that something was taken away from their relationship. Somebody gave something more and the other one was left hanging. And we saw exactly what happened with news coming out allegedly that Blake stole Ryan Reynolds from Scarlett Johansson, as they may have had more intimate contact while they were filming Green Lantern. And it wasn't necessarily that they actually started dating a year after, but it could have been that things really heated up between the two of them in a motel around the time when Ryan was still together with Scarlett. Whatever Blake did there during that period that was not standing in her integrity, whatever harm she conducted to another person, such as Scarlett, another actress, well, this is coming back to bite her in the proverbial tuckus because it's a karmic blowback. So there is no coincidence that this vitriol from the public is taking place during a Mercury retrograde, because a Mercury retrograde usually brings up to the surface unfinished business from the previous period. Things that we usually glossed over, they tend to be reanalyzed during a Mercury retrograde. And I think that what happened here is that a lot of the hurt that Blake may have inadvertently caused Scarlett is now coming back against her in the shape of a sucker punch from the public, the Gen Z generation specifically, who happen to have a Pluto Sagittarius marker that touches upon Scarlett's Sun in Sagittarius in a powerful way, but in a very restricting and critical way, touching upon the Uranus and the Saturn points in Sagittarius that Blake has in her chart. So the public is urging her to transform in a powerful way by calling her out on her inauthentic BS, Pluto and Sagittarius, Gen Zers, because she is meant to grow and evolve from whatever stagnation she is experiencing at the level of her skills and her performance. Saturn and Sagittarius in the 5th house. Do you see how this is working? And here comes another Sagittarius Sun that puts her right back on the map and right in the center of this karmic overload. Colleen Hoover. Let's bring up her chart as well. Thank you, cut and paste skills in Filmora. Oh gosh, I'm trying to act like one of those video essay YouTubers and it's not working because I'm 37 years old and an astrologer. And what am I doing? I don't know. I just wanted to film a video in a relaxed way. Just let me be, okay? Let's look at Colleen's chart. So, I actually think that in spite of all the backlash and the criticism of her work that she has suffered from countless YouTubers out there, I do think that she's a sweetheart, okay? Hear me out, hear me out. We see here a person that has a Sun conjunct Neptune and Sagittarius. So her Sun, colored by Neptune, gives her a more Piscean quality, right? There is an energy of selflessness, self-sacrificing vibes about her. No wonder that she actually worked previously as a social worker. Trying to help other people comes naturally to her. Creativity, imagining things, comes naturally to her. Although she may do this in a messy, unstructured kind of way that tends to irk people, because what we see there in her chart is that she has a South Node in Pisces and a North Node in Virgo. Do we know of any Virgos or Virgo ascendant individuals that happen to be involved in the production of her movie? I wonder, who are these people? Now, another thing that I see here that's fascinating is that, much like Blake, Colleen Hoover has a moon in Virgo. But unlike Blake, Colleen has a moon in Virgo conjunct Saturn, Lilith, Jupiter, Mars, and the North Node. She has a stellium in Virgo, like yours truly, the woman who's being taken down from her throne at the moment. So, do you see a pattern here with Colleen Hoover being criticized by YouTubers? She has a stellium in Virgo cluster, and now all of a sudden Blake appears into the public by starring in a movie based on a book that Colleen has written, and Blake is also suffering the irate vibes and energy of the Gen Z generation, who, being Pluto and Sagittarius people, they are in a tight square with all this Virgo vibrations. We also see that Colleen has Mercury conjunct Uranus in Scorpio, so she tends to have these bright flashes of inspiration that come over her, and these bright flashes of inspiration tend to deal with emotional intensity, sexuality, obsession, domestic violence, because we see their Scorpio deals with all of these difficult, transformational, sometimes horrifying, sometimes intensely sexualized experiences that happen behind closed doors when nobody's looking, what is hidden, what is occult, what is kept a secret. Keeping the fact that she has the South Node in Pisces, the Sun conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius, and Mercury conjunct Uranus in Scorpio tells me that she is an individual that can write some really impactful, emotional pieces that may suffer in terms of logic and in terms of internal structure. And I think this is why people are so heavily critical of her work. That is not to say that reaching people emotionally is not doing the best for her. As you can see, she's a best-selling author. While you are sitting there criticizing Colleen, she's just casually lounging on her millions, on her public, and on other people's adoration. She managed to get people to talk about domestic violence in a period where romantic topics are not really at the top of our concerns. So that's an achievement, and I attribute this to my favorite aspect in her chart, also the reason why I empathize with her. She has a moon conjunct Saturn. I wrote extensively about this experience. I was also born with it. It is an indicator of trauma in a person's life, trauma that usually comes from a mother figure that was finicky, that was critical, that transformed you into a cash pig, basically, from a very young age. I do believe that some of these aspects of being in the shadow of a woman that has a lot of authority and power and may disregard her creative input is also the kind of relationship that is happening between Blake and Colleen, and the reason why, in spite of the fact that they did some interviews together, and in spite of the fact of coming across as being quite friendly, I don't really see them as being that respectful or fascinated with each other's work. I feel that the situation is deeply uncomfortable for Colleen because, in spite of the fact that she has a stellium of planets in Virgo, North Node, having the North Node there is making the whole experience incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly difficult for her to swallow. So being around Blake is difficult for Colleen. And I also feel that being around Justin was also difficult, but on a different level. Maybe she disagreed with his version of events, but I think that she agreed with his communication about the events and his respect for her work. Because with all that stellium energy, and especially having Moon, Pluto, Saturn, and Mars in Scorpio, Justin touched upon Mercury and Uranus placements of Colleen, and thereby he used powerful emotional descriptions to negotiate a contract for the movie with Colleen, because apparently Colleen sold him the rights to the adaptation of her book after after he wrote a letter to her describing the context of his interest and how important the novel was to him and how it touched him. Unfortunately, we see that what happens in the case of a lot of individuals that have Moon conjunct Saturn, like Justin and Colleen, is that they are hard workers. They care deeply about the work that they do because karma wouldn't allow them otherwise. If they don't care about the work that they do, if they're not emotionally invested in their activity, their professional activity, then they will suffer an immediate blowback. They will suffer loss of money, the loss of respect, the loss of status. I can tell you because I also have this in my chart. It's not in Virgo, it's not in Scorpio. My placement is in Sagittarius, but I can tell you from experience that indeed Moon conjunct Saturn does talk about being the worker that never gets the credit while other people sponge off on your ideas and success, which is exactly what happened in this situation, because who are the people that are benefiting the most from Colleen's work and Justin's vision as a director? Well, it's Blake and Ryan, apparently. They are the ones walking off with millions. They are the ones that had their Wolverine / it ends with us weekend. While Justin and Colleen tend to be pushed to the side, especially Justin in the situation tends to have gone down his solo path of promoting the movie because his Saturn in the 3rd house would not allow him to treat the subject lightly in professional interviews. Okay, so I think that's it. I said everything I wanted to say. This is my astrological 2 cents related to all of these people, all 4 of them. This has been by no means an in-depth exploration of their individual charts. I just wanted to point some really fascinating things that they had in common and how they all gravitated at this point in time during the Mercury retrograde that happened over Virgo and Leo, and we saw how many planets and points all of these individuals had in Virgo and Leo, and that's why the drama kind of coagulated in this epicenter in the month of August 2024. So God bless Mercury retrograde for bringing up the truth to the surface. The drama was really fascinating, I'm not going to lie. It was really hooking me in. At the same time, I don't think that it's fair how Blake is being treated. I don't think that Colleen Hoover is fairly treated either, although to be honest, I haven't read any of her books, so I do apologize if you have read one of her books and you actually feel like it was grating on your nerves or it was really irritating or silly. I can understand, but at the same time I don't support women bashing to such an intense degree. We also need to keep in mind that these women's lives live in the context of other men's experiences as well, and we really need to take Ryan Reynolds as accountable for all this mess as well, because as you can see from looking at his chart, he has a lot more to do, a lot more control in the situation than you could have imagined just by reading the news pieces. That's why astrology is so fascinating, kids. I hope you can share and bless me with your comments in the description box below. Have you been following the drama? Is this the first time that you're hearing about the Blake Baldoni situation? I would be thrilled to read your comments. I love to hear from you, my smart astro cookies. And I was thinking that I should do a similar analysis with the birth charts of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, because at the moment Jupiter in Gemini is really getting me worried. Yeah, maybe we can talk about that. If this video gets 500 likes, I'm going to create the presidential analysis. Okay, so let's just let me give you a milestone, let me give you a challenge. Okay, if you do one for me, I do one for you. Okay, good. I'm gonna see myself out right now. Thank you for listening. Ciao.